I like trains.
On March 26, 2022, the Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad ran the local miscellaneous train, which Canadian National classifies as L518 and L519, L518 southbound and L519 northbound. This as-needed train originates in Greenville, Pennsylvania, and usually heads southbound at the start of its journey. Occasionally, the miscellaneous train will run northbound to Conneaut, Ohio and back, but the supply companies located south of Greenville are consistently in much higher demand of service since they are closer to Pittsburgh. The local serves the following facilities between Greenville and North Bessemer: Montgomery Truss and Panel Incorporated, also known as Montgomery Lumber, in Grove City, Calvin Yard in Butler, Cleveland Cliffs, also known as AK Steel, in Butler, and Bennett Supply Company in North Bessemer. However, the train does not always serve all these plants when it operates. Whether they do or not depends on customer demand, which is true for all local trains, including those on Class I railroads. On this day, the miscellaneous train worked Montgomery Lumber in Grove City and Calvin Yard in Butler, skipping AK Steel and Bennett Supply Company. This video will eventually feature the train switching in Calvin Yard, the only switching action we got in the chase. The Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad typically uses Bessemer locomotives for power on the local. This, of course, is the main reason why many rail fans, including myself, have such interest in catching this train and sometimes even chasing it like I did here. Currently, there are 3 Bessemer locomotives on the B&LE's property. Locomotive 862, an EMD SD38, was built in May of 1967 by the B&LE and was sold to the Duluth, Mesabi, and Iron Range Railroad in late 20th century. When the B&LE bought 862 back a few years later, they never repainted the locomotive back into Bessemer colors, so 862 still wears its purple DMIR scheme with B&LE reporting marks on each side. 868, an EMD SD38AC, was built in July of 1971 by the B&LE. Today, the 868 remains non-rebuilt and has kept its original orange paint scheme for over 50 years. 905, on the other hand, is a rebuilt EMD SD40T-3, originally built in March of 1973 as an SD45T-2 for the St. Louis and Southwestern Railway, also known as Cotton Belt, and later sold to Southern Pacific Railroad before being bought out by the B&LE. This locomotive is also known as a tunnel motor, which is what the T in SD40T-3 stands for. The Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad used to have several Bessemer units on the property, but most have been sold or retired. 862, 868, and 905 are the only locomotives left on the railroad that fully represent Bessemer history. On this day, locomotives 868 and 905 were used on the MISC run and will be featured in this video. At the time of this chase, 862 remained in Conneaut, Ohio, serving as a backup locomotive in case 905 or 868 were to break down. Although this chase was rather short in terms of time and distance, it was all but eventful. We wasted no time getting to each location and had little time to settle in before the train passed each spot. Thankfully, this ended up being successful. Now you probably noticed that the title of this video includes part 1 in it. This is because I chased the miscellaneous train a few days later, on March 30th. While I could combine both chases into one video, I decided to post them separately because a few hours after chasing this train, I rail-fanned in Homestead, Pennsylvania, and caught several cool trains there and did not want to waste any time uploading them to my channel. Stay tuned for those videos as well. For now, we have reached the end of this video's introduction and on to the important part, the footage of the chase. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this video of vintage EMD power at work on the Bessemer and Lake Erie Railroad. Our chase begins at CP Carter in Forestville as the southbound local crosses Harmony Road. Next, the train is seen crossing Hallston Road in Slippery Rock. In Shanor-Northvue, 868 and 905 round the curve at 35 miles per hour before crossing Jamisonville Road. Here, the train switches Calvin Yard in Butler and drops 5 of its 9 cars, the remaining 4 being gondolas carrying scrap. Here, a brakeman is pictured manually applying the switch to line the locomotives to connect to the remaining scrap gondolas. This is a sight that takes us back to the first days of the railroad. Now that the switching in Calvin Yard is complete, locomotives 868 and 905 can proceed southbound with their train through Butler. Our final spot of this chase was on top of a bridge next to Hansen Avenue in downtown Butler. Thank you all for watching this video, and have a great rest of your day.